Okay, so there's more. There's another song maybe we close
Was that you
with.
singing?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it you playing also?
It was. It was.
For you? All right.
It was.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I'm sorry. You tempted my vanity, so there is a second song. So these are inspired, and some of these are images from the conference. So let me do 20 seconds of the other song, and then we'll start.
Same damn words. Art.
Oh my word, these might be the same damn bird. Bird watchers, truly birds of a feather. Long distance migrants bind us together. I've heard it said, word of mouth, local summer birds winter down south, flying across borders, don't you know, to the Caribbean and Mexico. Longer migrations they endure. America Central, America del Sur. Call it by its winter name, I wanna. The Candelita Americana.
And then the next verse of the song gives its French name in Quebec, which is where the conference was. So I'd like to first welcome. The purpose of this was it was such a great experience to go to the National Audubon Leadership Conference. They're held every 2 years. That I thought I would just kind of give a summary for anyone who might be interested for chapters, who might be interested that no one was able to go. Just kind of here's a summary, and I was going to do all my own thing. This morning, National Audubon sent to everybody who went, here's all these resources from the conference, which was like 3 weeks ago. So perfect timing to share with you. So I thought I'd share a little. Then if you had any questions, because the next one's in 2 years, and maybe someone here watching this as considers going, and just to kind of give you an idea of what was said, but also what they're like, in case you're interested.
So it's open to the general public?
It's opened, so it's you would register through an Audubon chapter. But that being said, there were students from Audubon chapters. So it's meant to be an Audubon leadership conference. So you're already connected, and now after leaving this conference, you're motivated to take on a more active role. Now, in Audubon societies, there's president, vice president, but then there's all sorts of just board members, committee members, etc. So it isn't limited to you're the president of a chapter. You could be like I'm on the sanctuaries committee, or I'm on the whatever your session had done. So if you don't mind, I kind of thought this would be a fun way to start. I'd like to start with my journey to there. And the reason I want to do this is it turned out that one of my reasons for going, and all of these videos, the theme, was actually the theme of the conference. So as I just kind of described what was in my head going and coming, it turns out that was what the theme of the conference is. And then also just kind of, if you can't see it at home, I'm wearing a t-shirt for the conference that says "Soaring Together." That was the name of the conference, but also kind of a theme where when you get there, so the reason what I was thinking on my way there ended up kind of being the theme of the conference, and I didn't appreciate it at the time. And is that surprising? No, not really, because we bird watchers, and everyone in this community, everyone watching, we have a lot in common. And that was another kind of thing that came out of it. You have people, and if you're in a conference here, you sit down and you realize, wow, what you're doing in your conference here with pollinators, or with preventing window strikes, or concerned about habitat loss. Wow, that's what we're doing in this other state, and that's what we're doing in Canada, and that's what we're doing with Mexico, and it was just wonderful to have that. So here, on my way there, I decided I'd stop in the Catskills, I'd stop in the Adirondacks, and take pictures of birds. So here's a yellow rumped warbler. And you might say, oh yeah, yellow rumped warblers, I love them. But see, here's the thing. We see them in spring, all right? This is summer. This is their breeding grounds in the Adirondacks. So yes, they're our birds. They pass through here in spring and autumn. But they're not staying here to lay their eggs. They're doing that in Canada and in Adirondacks and New Hampshire, etc. This next one is a chestnut-sided warbler, which passed through our area to get to the Catskills, and go on and on. So the theme that I realized is I was wondering, will I see like crazy exotic birds in Canada, New Hampshire, and and the answer was I could have, and I'll be happy to point out a couple I could have seen but didn't. But for the most part, no. I saw a lot of yellow warblers. I saw a lot of, but if you're wondering, because there are birds, they pass through here first. So no, I shouldn't expect to see something that I've never seen before, because they don't get to Canada unless they go through here first. So Canada needs us. It needs the Bashakill. It needs Sullivan County. It needs Orange County, etc. These birds pass through those places first. But we hope to see them again, some only during migration. We won't unless Canada takes care of them and New Hampshire takes care of them. And then after passing through us, they go to Georgia, all right? But some go to Colombia, some go to Brazil, some go to the Caribbean, and we won't see them again unless they take care of them. And so that was kind of one of my reasons for going. I wanted to do some Canadian bird watching to stress that point. And it turns out that was the theme of the conference, where they, for the first time, this was the first international conference that Audubon has ever had. So it was in Canada. This was the first time it was outside of the country. And they were making a big point. So I'll point out birds where I go. So this is a black-throated green. We have them here, but their main breeding habitat is conifer forests. So when you go up into the Adirondacks, when you go into the mountainous regions in Canada, that's where you get these big conifer forests. That's where they like to lay their eggs. We could see them here, but this isn't their main place. It's Canada. I'll just have these birds in the background as we go. So yellow rump warblers, I've never seen them in their breeding range again. That was cool. So there were all of these people who spoke. I'll get to pictures from the conference in a second, but it was open with Native Americans from Canada, because Audubon is working on partnerships with nations there that are, working to preserve lots of habitat there. I was talking with individuals from Colombia, from Costa Rica, where Audubon has already partnered, and then individuals from Brazil and Mexico, where they hope to be partnering soon, with that idea that conserving birds is a hemisphere effort. All right. If you're working hard in Sullivan County and Canada isn't, and Colombia isn't, well, then the birds, we're losing them already. But the only way we save them is that if we all work together. So going into the conference, just driving up there, I was, kind of in the frame of mind, I'm seeing all these birds that I know. The merlins that I saw on one of the walks there, this is actually, it was fun, it was a pair that was actually feeding a chick. So obviously they were, it had left the nest, but it was still being fed by the adults. Obviously, where we were in Canada, this is where they breed, because we were watching the adults feed the young. They pass through here, but they don't breed here. All right. So once again, I've seen merlins in our area. Some of you may have as well. But this is where they're going, and they'll pass back through our area when they come back. So I've got more on that. Let me just do one last one. All right. So I apologize. There's a lot to say here, but I'll make it really quick as I'll get to the conference. First, this is pictures of the scenery and the birds, and not pictures of me, because I was scared out of my mind. If you've never been to Mount Washington, it is no joke scary. All right. So it is the highest point in the eastern United States. It was July temperatures at the bottom. It was 39 degrees with 50-mile-an-hour winds at the top.
Wow.
I tried to take a selfie and my iPhone almost blew out of my hand. There's a sign that says, "This is the greatest," oh, there you go. 230 miles an hour, the highest wind speed recorded on planet Earth. But so here's just a neat habitat going north. This is what's called an alpine region. Notice that the trees are giving way and the area up is treeless. Now, I was really excited to see alpine birds, but I was also eager to get off because there's this narrow road with no guardrails that it's scary as anything. So here's a robin, kudos to the robin for living above the tree line in this inhospitable place. That one and a slate-colored junco, slate-eyed junco, slate-colored junco. I'm sorry, dark-eyed junco. Sorry, I'm mixing up their two names. They were the two that I noticed above the tree line. But the reason I put this here is I'm sad, so forgive me for this. There are some of the rarest birds in the eastern U.S. are a couple of thrushes that you would see in alpine environments. One is called Bricknell's thrush. This is not it. It's a robin, but it's my stand-in. Robins or thrushes, so it's like I did not see a Bricknell's thrush. There's her. So anyway, so I get to Canada and I then get to this conference. Now, yeah.
What's the altitude of?
It was 6,000 feet. And on the way there, that was the way back. On the way there, I went to Whiteface Mountain, which is in the Adirondacks. That's a little over 4,000 feet. Also an alpine environment.
Did you get the obligatory bumper sticker, this car climbed for?
Yeah, I did. I didn't put it on, but I did. But it was seriously stressful. Because both going up and going down, you're like if you pass a wide car, I'm not quite sure what we do because you're riding your brakes or either way. But anyway, that's. Let me get to some of the things here. So if you were to get to, I'm sorry, I tried to open all of these things, so let's do this. If you get to the Audubon, so the conference, it's just, as you might imagine, it's just wonderful. I'll show you pictures in a second, but let me just kind of show you the layout. You're in this fancy hotel. You stay there for a couple of days, and then you sign up for workshops. And notice how many there are, which means that might be why, if you're part of a chapter like Sullivan Audubon or Orange County Audubon, maybe multiple people go. Like I was kind of representing, happy to share with Sullivan being a member. I'm vice president of Orange, but I was the only one, from a chapter. But a bunch of people came in groups of 2s or 3s. And an advantage of that is you can't see all of these sessions. All right, so you pick one that you feel that meets your interests, but there's more there. I'll say a few about each one. I just want to kind of introduce you to the structure of the conference. Now, there's big meetings, etc. There's a welcome picnic. I'll get to that in a second. But then they have really nice, dinners, as you might imagine. But then they also do a lot of field trips, all right, because they want you to leave as better birders. So it's not just all you're sitting in a conference. So then you would pick, all right, do you want to do, this trip here? Do you want to do this trip here? Do you want to do this trip here? And I apologize. Like the worst thing, and I'm a little ashamed of myself, is I like to learn languages. Like I speak Spanish. I've lived in Latin America for a little bit. I've learned a native language in South America. French was beyond me. Like I'm trying to drive and it was really stressful because it's like GPS is like make a left on and I'm like, which one is that? So really, I only got 2 phrases out of French. One of them was Paroline flamboyant. Which is the way you would say American redstart in French. Paroline is warbler, flamboyant is flamboyant. All right. So anyway, so these are all parks and national parks. I didn't know this. About 60% of Canadians live within like 70 miles of the U.S. border. So there's actually a bunch of national parks around Montreal. All right. So you don't have to go far away because most Canadians don't live far away. So anyway, so here are just these. Now, if anyone is interested, you could email me, and I'd be happy to send it to Maura, to Jackie, to Orange County Audubon. This link. So I'm just going to zip through, all right, because you don't need to. I'm just trying to give you like an idea of all of this. But if anyone wanted any of these resources, they're all available to you. So this was just, there's a whole bunch of sessions. I'd like to, just try to hit a bunch of things. I thought I'd start, there we go. So there's an opening picnic, and I shamelessly am showing you this for a reason, all right? So just to show you, so yeah, and like I said, all these people are doing exactly what you're doing, but just in other areas. And it just, so everyone you sit down with, has stories, they have birding stories, they have, stories about what they're trying. And so, the whole soaring together type of thing. One of the the sessions was on, getting grants to get things for your glass, so that like the dots, because you could tape like little birds to them, but there's like dots you can put on them, but they cost more than you'd think they would. But National Audubon does give some grants. And one of the things that came up is, some of the other people you might meet, they've already gone through the grant writing process and would be great resources in doing this. Now, not only is there national, but I'll get back to this later, then there's separate branches, like there's New York and Connecticut has its own subdivision. They have monthly meetings, etc. And so for a while we were in breakout rooms regionally. All right, so it was nice to be with all these birders here, but then all of a sudden there's a bunch of people from different parts of New York and Connecticut who literally, like, hey, if we had a question about, this, I now have a contact who lives very close. Okay, now, there's one thing that National Audubon didn't do is for the opening picnic, I'm sure it'll come up in a second. Yeah. They didn't think of who to exclude. So it turns out that he was a good guy. He played piano in the lounge for a while. That if someone shows up with a guitar and they weren't expecting it, they just let them walk around and play, as you'll see. And then they include it in their slideshow. So I just want to get to that, and then we'll go on. So, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, I thought it was one more. Okay. It'll come. There's me playing, to entertain the people who were in line to get all of the food. Anyway, I'm here somewhere. Wow. All right. Well, I'm here. You can find yourself.
We don't believe you.
All right, and that's fair. That's fair. So, I'd like to go into their resources, but I thought it might be useful if you kind of saw it from my view, like sitting in the sessions first. So I thought like we'd kind of do both. So I took notes on the sessions I went to. So I just want to zip through those because there were just moments like, that's a good point, or like, or that's interesting, with the idea that, if someone from your chapter went, like there would just be these insights. Audubon has set milestones as far as we're going to try to store more carbon in more lands that we preserve, and like it's exhausting to there's so many things to be done. But the same land which is preserving birds is storing carbon and thus helping to promote climate, not just helping birds, but helping biodiversity, and then helping humans, because if the habitat is losing birds, it might be because there's not enough water. Well, that's bad habitat for birds. It's bad habitat for all of the other critters. But it's bad for people, too. So if you look out and you say, there's just so much that needs to be done, and I feel exhausted, a lot of these you're actually doing the same, work, all right, that you're conserving birds, but you're also making this a better place for people. You're also helping to do this. So there was one example, there was a speaker from Panama. They considered conservation as an estimate, so they preserved some habitat. But also this would protect the Panamanian airport from flooding. All right, so that, these don't have to be an either or type of things. So there were all of these different things I'm just pointing out. So natural, climate solutions, that was a buzzword. There were a couple of other buzzwords. I mentioned buzzwords because if you said, I have an idea, but I'd love a little money, Audubon does do mini grants. And it was brought up, the more of their buzzwords that you're using, and this would help with this, like the more likelihood that you might have to get some of this. And so, we're obviously in this area. People spoke about grasslands, and and then you start, I was taking notes and like, grassland birds declining faster than any other group. Grasslands can actually store a lot of carbon if you rotate the paddocks. There's a new thing that Audubon is doing, that for beef they can get a label where this beef is Audubon certified for bird-friendly grazing. So, that they're encouraging farmers that if you, use these conservation practices, you'll get this, which might, promote, the number of sales that you have. And, and because it's not my area, obviously, look, here's work that other Audubon chapters are doing in other parts of the country. That was interesting. Yes.
So, following up on that one little thing, is anybody in Audubon contacting cattle ranchers to tell them?
So this is the product. This isn't a proposal. This is the product of what's already happening. So they've said, we're working with these ranchers, and because of the work that we're doing, we're giving them this label to do this. And then, the more people become aware of it, you might say, like I'm going to specifically request the Audubon certified beef. So that was the interesting, there is a lot that's going on, so there was, we hope to do this with Brazil and Mexico, but here's what we've already done with Canada and with Colombia, and so there was a lot of, we have these goals, and here's, how we're working.
I think they actually are doing that and bringing back the Florida grasshopper or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's called something to do with a grasshopper. It's a sparrow, though. It's a type of sparrow.
Mm-hmm.
And they have ranchers there who are working with Audubon, and has been very successful in bringing back those almost extinct sparrows in the Florida ranches.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're actually raising, there's a lot of flooding that goes on, so they raise the nests a little bit in the areas, and they cordon them off so that the cattle don't graze on them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there are projects like that going on.
Thank you.
There was just a recent documentary up in the sea on this Florida grasshopper sparrow.
If you can't hear at home, I know sometimes that's an issue. That same principle I just mentioned, there are apparently efforts in Florida working with some of the sparrows there. And when Audubon helped produce that study, which actually was the best study for counting the birds which are being lost, New World sparrows and warblers are the ones, the bird orders which have declined the most. So, there are a lot of sparrows which are certainly suffering. I'm just zipping through some of the insights I got quickly, then I'll go back to the more prepared materials. They talked about cities for a little bit. Now, cities, why? They're not designed for birds, but birds certainly visit them, and actually because of all of the artificial light they're drawn, it's being shown that if birds are migrating and there's a place with a lot of light, they'll actually more likely to veer in that direction. So then projects, which would include, turning off the lights which aren't being used. But, just as there are projects going out on the ranches, there are projects going on in the suburbs of Philadelphia to reclaim areas for habitat. I remember that, I think it was a black-throated blue warbler. I struggle to see them in the wild here. But if you ever go birding in a big city, they're used to people. You can get really good pictures. So like you say, why would I go to a city? You can actually get great pictures of birds because they'll let you get closer. That was something that I learned. And so, some people were talking about insects and plants. But once again, if you don't have water, you don't have landscape, you don't have birds. If you don't have insects, you don't have birds. And so that was a point which was made. Not everyone's a bird watcher. There are flower people, but we're on the same thing. If you don't have the native plants, then you're not going to get the birds. All right, and so you can recruit people who aren't 100% in your interest. Here, climate change is affecting birds. One thing I hadn't really thought, but that it's affecting them in different ways in different seasons. So how a climate change affects a bird in spring might be different from how it's affecting it in summer. And just little insights that makes perfect sense, but I had never, put those things together. Audubon has a goal of trying to protect 300 million acres by 2028. And they're well on the way. And so that was exciting to see people set really lofty goals. The thing that kept coming up is they want to bend the bird curve. So bird numbers are just going down. And they would like to bend it so that they stop going down as sharply and then maybe level off, hopefully even increase. But, it's not just pie in the sky birds are dying, we'll just try to slow it down. They're actually, no, what can we do to actually to stop? It was wonderful to hear someone say, we're actually going to try to do this. Bird striking windows, and I know that Sullivan has made a big effort on bird strikes here. Very important. That gets back into the artificial light. So keeping lights on at night is going to attract a lot of birds which are migrating at night, and they hit windows. So by turning off the lights, you're not only saving energy but then saving saving birds. A lot of stuff on native plants for a lot of reasons that, things like autumn olive, they make berries. Some of the honeysuckles, they make berries, but they're not as nutritious as the native plants, the dogwoods. So our migrating birds, they're better off eating the natives. Also, then, all plants make toxins. The insects in this area, and thus the birds that eat them, they have adapted to native plants, all right? You introduce all of these foreign ones. Now there's toxins now in the food chain that, the bugs aren't as used to, the birds aren't as used to. So native plant sales and planting native, plants in your garden, that's something that everyone can do. And once again, a lot of people are gardeners. All right, so maybe they're not, hey, I'm a bird watcher, but you realize we're on the same team. Like, you're making bird habitat, a way of reaching a lot of these people. One of the, the things I'm pondering my own, like, create your own bird sanctuary. If everyone looked at their backyard as like a potential for a bird sanctuary. And so people were talking about how they, could partner with master gardeners and native nurseries. So they talk to a nursery and they say, hey, go, here, et cetera, and just how one goes about this. So, different groups had different thoughts. There's a big effort to try to get younger people involved. So, for colleges, do you have a biology club? Can you start an Audubon chapter on campus? I'm going to actually try at Orange to get this, but a number of the sessions were led by students who were doing a lot of work and doing projects as part of Audubon chapters. That's something they're pushing a great deal. Something I don't know if you do, I'm almost to the end of my notes and I'll go back to the bigger stuff. There's a couple of bird counts that Audubon does every year. They do the Christmas bird count, they do the backyard bird count, and they do climate watch. And I'm speaking for Orange County Audubon. We're kind of on the fence about climate watch. It just seems weird. All right, like, I don't know if you're into it. It's like you're not counting all the birds. They give you like a bird, bluebirds. You're just going out and you're counting bluebirds. And they give you a square, and you go to this square, and you have 5 minutes to stand there and count all the bluebirds that you see. And if at 5 minutes and 10 seconds you spot a bluebird, you don't count it. It just, there's rules. And then you go to your next square. It just seems weird. Like, we've done it a couple times. This year we were kind of on the fence. But they explained it a little more, and it was fascinating. So I'd just like to share this because I was not going here at all.
So is it based on a statistical sampling model?
Exactly. So we know the climate is changing. How is that going to affect birds? Well, this is an experiment. We don't know. But we're going to need to know, if we're going to try to preserve habitat, if we're going to try to do these things to conserve birds, we want to know where they're going. They're moving. Some birds are moving farther north. They're changing their ranges. We want to know how so that we can best treat them. So you make models, you make predictions, and then you go out and test those to see how. So I didn't realize that. It just seemed a little weird and hokey, but it's actually, they're, as you pointed out, they're trying to statistically test their models about where birds are going as climate changes, so they can best make the predictions which can address them. I sat in a session on, if you're in an Audubon society, or I'm sure any organization, how do you get an effective board, and building a board with intention, for example, like, we need someone who does this, we need someone who does this, so that's how we're going to recruit. Obviously, diversity is an issue. Diversity hits a lot of areas. First, geographical issue. Like, I'm not going to knock Orange County Audubon, but most of our sanctuaries are near the town of Warwick. Most of our board members live in Warwick, but we service a county. So, here's an idea. If you're recruiting from a board, maybe you try to geographically get diversity. It's long known that if you were to go to Christmas bird counts, almost more than 90% are white, and they are older in general. If we're going to save birds, all right, this is going to be something that we all pitch in and do. So if we're building a board, obviously the more inclusive we can make the board, the more effectively we can reach out and bring in everyone. So just, there was a lot of interesting thoughts on that. So if you were to ever go to a conference, you're not going to go to every session. All right, so you sign up for the ones you do, and then, a lot of these, I should have known a lot of that. Like, a lot of them, I sat back, I said, that makes perfect sense. But it didn't dawn on me until I heard, a presenter say this. So that was really enjoyable. Okay. Getting back to these are available online. So let me just kind of hit some of the highlights, and I'll go to like my favorite, workshop that they were kind of doing. So, for example, the Climate Watch, I kind of told you about that. Now, I did the 2-second version with the notes that I took, but if you would like the PowerPoint presentations that were used in the session, they're here, all right, with the pictures, etc. Obviously, I couldn't fit in more than a third of these sessions over 4 days. I'm not trying to give them all to you, in 40, 50 minutes. But if one of these interested you and it would have been nice to go to the conference and hear what they said about Climate Watch. Here's the PowerPoint of what they said. So here's a resource which is available to you. I'm recording this, so obviously, the link is here. But once again, if anyone wanted to email me at walterjan@sunyorange.edu, I'd be happy to send you the link, and I'm sure it can get out to other people as well. So if you wanted to write a grant, if you wanted to do Christmas bird counts, etc. I'd like to talk about the monitoring of birds. This is going to pop up a couple of places, so let me just kind of do it all in one shot because they had a whole bunch of things. This is okay. So Audubon has what they call here's our flight plan. Like this is how we're going to bend the bird curve. It's not like we should do stuff. It's like no, we want to do this. We want the bird numbers to stop declining. And here's how we're going to do it. So we're going to preserve habitat. We're going to, affect climate. We're going to do, political action, etc. Once again, I have the song, but since the original, so this is saying 3 billion birds lost since 1970. The original paper, which was quoted, used 1950. Either way, North America has lost a quarter of its birds in recent decades. I mean, that's huge. That's 3 billion birds. That's less of everything. Now, the thing that scares me the most is if you were starting in 1950, even if you started in 1970, there were fewer people. Like in 1950, there were like 3 billion people on the planet. If that's what we started doing in 1950, there are now 8. All right, and climate change is really starting to affect things, whereas in 1950 it wasn't. So if this is the trend that started in 1950, this is important. It's going to take real concerted effort to bend the bird curve. All right, and so they talk a lot about this, and they put up maps like this is the area that has been conserved. This is the area that we hope to preserve as far as habitat, and they'll say, here's a bunch of partnerships where we've got going on in Latin America. Here's where we'd like to expand. All right, so that hopefully the next time there's a meeting. So there's more there, but this was my favorite thing, and this encompassed a lot. So I'd like to explain. And so this is complicated. So I'm just going to introduce it. But you might really enjoy this. So if you went online and just typed in Audubon Bird Migration Explorer, you'll get to this, and you could lose yourself for hours in this. So what's going on is if you look in your bird book, there's like, here's like the migration route. Like, so here's breeding range in, purple, and here's, winter range in blue and yellow. It's all right. But this is trying to no, scientifically, let's monitor where the birds are. Let's really, where are they? Where do they travel? Where does each individual? So there's a bunch of techniques, and there were sessions on each one. Like some of the sessions actually included bird banding, where people went out and watched it being done. But you can do a couple of things. You could actually band a bird, all right, and have what's called a modus tower. So these are a little bit expensive, but this gets into the grants and the stuff like this. So if we put a modus tower here, all right, what would happen is if a banded bird flew over, it would pick up a data point. And then if you were to ask, all right, I think that's the next one. Did I? All right, well, let's go. Land birds. Come on. So I'm sorry. Oh, I want to go here. All right. So what you can do is take individual birds, And now there's data as far as, we see where they're passing. So MODIS does that. But you can also then do it acoustically, just like eBird can pick up things and a trail camera can pick up visual. You can have an acoustic monitoring that just is going to count all the birds that this hears, and it downloads the data and uses that. Some people geocache individual birds so that if you know that a bird is fairly faithful to a site, you can catch it this year, put a little locator on it, and catch it the next year. And you can now see everywhere that it's gone. And you can see it flew from here to here in 2 days. It spent 5 days here. It went from here to here that days. And so all of this data is being gathered by different things, but it's all being put into the same place. All right. Now, one of the things that I did not, so just here's, my big revelation here, because certainly a lot of this I knew a lot. Our songbirds are in Latin America. I know that some of our birds, like the greater and lesser yellowlegs and Lee's sandpipers, they go down to like Tierra del Fuego in Argentina. All right, some of them in winter, and then they go up to Canadian tundra in summer. So these are birds which go the entire Western Hemisphere. In fact, I just saw some Lee's sandpipers. They're already in their fall migration. Why? Because they're going so far. All right, you can't get to Argentina if you start in September. You have to start now. So that I already knew. But the thing that I didn't know, and this is, I'm sorry, you can start getting, they have hundreds of birds here you can get here. So I'm just going to kind of stay here, but there's plenty of data here. If you notice all these green lines, this I didn't appreciate. So here's the Caribbean. Here's where we are, Sullivan County, Orange County, we're all up here. See all these green lines? There are so many birds which fly from the Caribbean and don't go up through Florida and the Carolinas and Virginia. They just fly over the ocean and they land here. So this is the first time they land to rest and get water and get food for the next leg of their journey here. So, all of this map is important. But just imagine how important, our area of New York is for these birds. This is the first time they're get a rest over stop since they took off from Jamaica or Cuba or someplace. So, just actually having, this bird actually started here, went to here, spent just fascinating data. And once again, it's a group effort. You don't get that unless you are promoting people getting these MODIS towers and you're collating all of this data here. So there were a number of sessions on that, and local chapters. There's a Connecticut chapter. That's there. Each chapter probably has your big thing. You do pollinator gardens, you do bird glass. And it all works. So obviously, you guys do whatever works for you. But the Connecticut chapter, they were talking about MODIS towers. They've already gotten grants to put up a couple of them, and so this might be of interest to some groups. And so obviously, there were field trip resources. I don't know where the next one will be. So all right, I'm not being critical, but so I was seeing a lot of yellow warblers and red-eyed virus. So in Montreal, it's very similar to the birds which pass through here in migration. So I saw a lot of cool birds. The merlin was cool, so we don't have merlins nesting here. But a lot of the birds, they were birds that I knew. But there were people from out west. They had never seen a Canada goose. All right, they thought that was the greatest thing, And so, depending on wherever the next one is, Western people might be bored, but you might see it's a rough grouse or whatever, or sage grouse, or whatever. So, and I was so happy that they sent these together. So I just kind of thought I'd end if I can find it. There's a lot here. So all of the different workshops are here. I mentioned Canada has just huge Native American nation, and so working with these nations to conserve a lot of their land is preserving huge tracts of land for birds. Was great. And so there's all of these resources, and obviously I didn't have a chance to go through half of it when I was there, so I'm obviously not going to do it here. But I was hoping to get back to like the pictures and all, just to kind of. All right, do I have to go? All right, so I'm sorry, I'm lost in all the things I've opened, so maybe I just go back and open it all again. And darn, I swear I'm in here somewhere playing guitar. Not that you care. All right. Maybe they respond. Oh, there we go. There we are. Okay. I was just like, maybe they deleted me, which was probably smart on their part. I just want to so then the evening, I mean, the food, as you might imagine at, fancy hotels and big international conferences, the food was wonderful. And then it was in, we'd have these, big meals. And I just wanted to get you the idea of, all right, so photos. So then what would happen at the end of the day? Here. So, here's this. Yeah, I think I'm going there. Yeah, so we got field trips. So you can look at all of these and just pictures of what it would be like. But not only were there like really cool dinners that I'll tell you about in a second, but then there was like the big dinner at the end where they're like honoring specific people throughout the country. Like here's a student who's done great work in a campus chapter. Here's this, and here, for example, these are some of the current head of Audubon, one of the officers of Audubon, and then here are people, some of them were from, Columbia for the work that they had done. Some of them, there was a young woman out west who was in a community organization that helped get not a national park, it was a national protected area. I'm not coming up with the right word. I'm sorry, but just a great like her and her little group. They ended up, you showed a picture of her with President Biden saying that this was now a protected land. And I'm sorry, I had some pictures, but I think I brought my old PowerPoint, not the new one. I just want you to see it's a really, and this is actually a gentleman from a New York chapter of, I'm sorry, my fault. I think it's either New York, Connecticut, but in our local group was presented a word for all of the work that he has done. I meant to get the crowd, and I'm sorry, I don't think I have my, I had a second PowerPoint that I think had some more of my pictures, but it was on the water. It was just a huge crowd. They had music. So the point, I just wanted to kind of make it, let me see if I can find, can I do something like here? Was that it's a good time. In that, you do birding in a place where you hadn't been before. Really nice. A really nice place to stay. The food is great. Camaraderie with all these people there. So yeah, this is more of a picture of just great food. But you're sitting tables, and all of a sudden there's these people you have all and stuff common with, and you're like, oh, I was in the session with you today. We were on the field trip together. So. The National Conference gets done every 2 years. New York, so let me I'll say this, it's something I hope to be fixing soon, is it's so easy to get busy with our own lives. Our little chapter is really local focused. We are part of a bigger New York group. I don't know that we're present in that as well as we should, like going to meetings, etc. But in addition to the national, there's also, like the New York groups. So, if you hoped to, step a little bit out of your local environment and start doing something bigger, there's this community where you share people and the whole idea of soaring together. It was just wonderful to realize you're doing this work here on your pollinator garden, they're doing this work over there on stopping collisions, they're doing this work on preserving habitat, and we're all on the same team and we're all doing the same thing together, and it's so much fun when you get to meet them. All right.
Was there a keynote speaker?
Yeah, so there was some of the keynote speakers, because we would have the big fancy awards dinner at the end, but then each night they had speakers. Then there were speakers who were involved in preserving lots of habitat in other countries. There was a Canadian politician who fairly high up. I apologize. I should remember names and exactly what positions. But all of the work that she has been doing. So it was really inspirational. So all these people had done great things. So at the end of your meal, you sit a little bit, and you listen to these various speakers, and then on the way home, then once again, I decided, I'll stop in New Hampshire a little bit. I'll stop in Vermont and Mount Washington, etc. And once again, there are these there are these hummingbirds up in Canada. All right, they can't stay. All right, so while they're there in summer, they're going to be passing through our area. So we help feed them. The flowers that you planted in your native garden is feeding them on their way, etc. And then just I've got all the birds. I saw there was a kestrel in the Catskills that was cool. There are yellow warblers. Like I never thought I'd be sick of seeing yellow warblers, and I'm not sick of it. But it was I was like, oh, what exotic things do I see in this national park in outside Montreal? And I was just like, there's another yellow warbler. There's another yellow warbler. So yeah. So in any case, I think of dark-eyed juncos as they are sparrows. They're just very, very common all over the place, here in winter. But once again, on Whiteface Mountain, they were at the top in an alpine environment. In Mount Washington, that was the first bird I saw coming down from the top, even before we hit trees yet. So it gave me another appreciation for these dark-eyed juncos. I just think of oh, here they are on the patio in winter or whatever. But in summer, these are really hardy alpine birds, and I did not have that appreciation for them. So it was a great experience, and I just wanted to share that because hey, if for whatever reason you wanted to go and couldn't, that you get a little a glimpse of that. As of this morning, all of the resources are available to you. So if you said, one of those sessions looked interesting, I would have I'll just get the PowerPoint there. So let me just go to that address. Once again, so this is an email I got that I'd be happy to forward on to you, or I'm recording this, so if you wanted to just go and probably be easier if I sent it to you, but if you typed in that address, you would get to here where they'd have all of the the resources that I had just said. And I had a great time, and I'll be honest, one of the reasons I went, I half wanted to go to the conference, but over spring break, I went to the Everglades, and I saw all our birds in their winter ground. And I said, ooh, it'd be cool to go to Canada. And then all of a sudden, and Audubon's national thing is in Canada. I'm like, all right, I guess if I hadn't been in that frame of mind, I don't know. And I had a great time. So, maybe this is something that you or members of your organization consider for next time. Did anybody have any questions, either here or at home? Yeah.
Was it 4 or 5 day conference?
Yeah, I think it was 4 days, 5 nights, I think.
And
Yeah.
what was the cost of it?
I forget. I forget.
It was free, right?
So it was. So there was there was a discount if you signed up by a certain point. I did. So there were actually 2 bills. One was the hotel, and one was the Audubon Conference. My recollection is, if anyone really needs to know, I'd be happy. But my recollection was the conference was 400 something, and that was with the early discount, and then the hotel was more like 700 or 800 for the days. That's what I recall. But if when it comes to the conference, as you start to sign up, you see the here's what the conference costs, etc. And as far as mini grants and organizations, that's what some of them do. They sponsor. Hey, we'll sponsor 3 members of our organization to go to the conference.
Now, do they change location every year?
So yes. They do. I think 2 years before this, they were out in Colorado. That's the thing that I had heard. This is the first time that they were international. And that was a big deal, doing this international push. They know where they're going in 2 years. They haven't said. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to hit something in Latin America next time, just given that theme. But I'm not in the know.
surprised that it's taken them that long to begin to develop partnerships with Mexico and Canada, because as you aptly pointed out, these birds live in all these places all the time. They
Yeah.
require the habitat and all the other things, the climate, in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
The hunting community's been doing that for about 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, all these departments, like the Department of Environmental Protection here in New York, they have conferences that engage Canada, US, and Mexico to set quotas on the amount and types of birds that can be taken
Mm-hmm.
in their harvest each year.
Mm-hmm.
But they do it to preserve the birds.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew years ago that I'm trying to think of the names, the white geese, the snow
snow
geese,
geese.
Mm-hmm.
the way they eat
Yeah.
the grass, they pull it out by the roots.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kill the grass. And they are responsible for killing off the habitat for all the spring songbirds.
Oh,
in
interesting.
Canada.
Interesting.
So they developed a quota that was very large to reduce that flock, but
Mm-hmm.
it had to involve Canada, US, and Mexico in order to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But just interesting partnerships.
And your
with
point is excellent.
Unlikely partnerships.
Yeah.
But they could occur with Audubon and the hunting community because they have something very much in common.
Yeah.
To preserve birds and to, look at these factors. It's interesting.
And one of the advantages of like a big national group, because obviously a lot of us belong to very localized things, but then, from the local level, there's just reaches that we don't have. Good point. Thank you. Anybody else? I'd be happy to field other questions, but as you know, something weird happened. If you really love this show, there's another one coming up in 7 minutes, because if you're at home and you signed up late, you didn't hear that. The messages that went out for tonight's program, there were 2 different times given, and so it is possible that some people start to attend for a 6 o'clock show. So we will rewind and do it all again. But that's just why I wanted to wrap up now. Thank you all for coming. It was great to see you. Once again, these resources are available, and if and this is recorded, so if any of this would help, in your organization.
Do you go to the New York State conference?
I would like to. We've been so focused in our own little bubble, I didn't realize how much I was missing. That's something I hope to change going forward. Actually, tomorrow night the state group is talking, and I think I'm going to be at the farmers market, but in the second half of it, I think I'm going to have a phone, if no one's there, I'll be listening. So it's something I would like to start doing more of.
Do you do a presentation at the farmer's market? Is that for Audubon?
No, that's for the Bashkill Area Association, just promoting Bashkill.
Yeah, we have a table there. Well, Meek is there every Thursday, pretty much, and Bashik Hill. Sometimes we combine the table.
Yeah,
we combine. Yeah. So we're just there, just representing.
What farmers market?
The one here,
Woodsboro?
Woodsboro. Yeah. It would be nice to get to some other ones, but we just